You're listening to the Visibly Fit podcast. Hey, I'm your host, Wendie Pett, and every week I'll give you holistic, practical solutions for everyday issues related to nutrition, healing, functional fitness, and behavior modifications. As a naturopath, fitness expert, and wellness coach for over 20 years, my goal is to empower you to reach for greater health and to rise up to your next level of living in mind, body, and spirit. You were created with greatness in mind. It's time to own it. Are you with me? Then let's dive in. Hello, and welcome to this episode of Visibly Fit. I'm your host, Wendie Pett. Today, we're going to talk about a tough topic, but it's one that needs to be addressed because I believe it is affecting our mental health state as a country, as a society, and the topic is pornography. I've never talked about this topic before here, but it's vital that we understand the just the destruction of it and how we can stand up and rise up and take matters in our own hands, so to speak, with our children and the children in our lives. And I have a perfect guest on the show to share some tools with you and talk about this topic. But I wanted to first mention that I was looking on the FHE health site, and I'm just going to give you a few stats about pornography, all right? First of all, 90% of children ages 8 to 16 have viewed porn in their life. The largest consumers of porn are said to be boys between the age of 12 to 17 years old. And 70% of men between the ages of 18 to 34 visit a porn site on a regular basis, like weekly and monthly. 1 in 6 women suffer and struggle. I do say suffer. Yeah. They struggle with porn addiction. And 25% of everything that is searched on the internet is our request for porn. I mean, think about that, 25%. They also give the stat that 50% of pastors have looked at porn and do regularly. 10 to 14 billion dollars a year are made in this industry. It is a money-making industry. It's one of the largest ones next to pharmaceuticals. It's the same amount that the U.S. government spends on foreign aid. Think about that. These stats are astounding. Every second, 28,258 people view porn. Every second. Every minute, $184,000 are spent on pornography. And the list goes on and on. I mean, the stats are just makes me sick. But it's one of those things that I feel like we really need to talk about because I feel like this industry is really causing a massive disruption in our society and in our mental health as individuals. And it's breaking down the unit of marriage and all kinds. There's so many repercussions, right? So we're going to talk to someone today who is on a mission to change how we are fighting against this war, if you will. Her name is Kristen Jenson, and she's the founder of Defend Young Minds, formerly known as Protect Young Minds. And she's the #1 best-selling author of Good Pictures, Bad Pictures. And it's a series of read-aloud books which have been translated into 10 different languages and are now augmented by a guidebook for professionals which support child therapists and educators. She's also the executive producer of the Brain Defense Digital Safety Curriculum, which is a powerful and engaging video-based course for families and educators. Kristen is a positive voice, yes, she is, for raising empowered, resilient, screen-smart kids who know how and why to reject pornography. She instills hope and confidence and leaves her audiences with pragmatic advice that they can act on immediately to defend these young minds. Kristen has raised her strong voice at international conferences and symposiums such as United Nations Civil Societies Conference and the National Coalition to End Sexual Exploitation Global Summit. She has testified before the Washington State Senate Law and Justice Committee on the Public Health Crisis of Pornography. And she is a trusted guest on a variety of media platforms, and she speaks up for defending children from pornography and all forms of sexual exploitation. Kristen received her bachelor's degree in English literature and her master's degree in organizational communication. She's a mother of 3 and grandmother of 2, and currently lives with her husband. And she says, awfully cute dog. I wonder what this awfully cute dog's name is. They are in Washington State. And yes, you can go to defendyoungminds.com to learn more, but you're going to really learn a lot from this episode. Enjoy. Well, welcome, Kristen Jenson, to Visibly Fit. I'm so delighted that you're here. We're about to talk on a topic that I've never talked about here on Visibly Fit before, but it's so important, and it's about pornography. What led you into even wanting to share about pornography? Because I have a funny feeling you have a story behind it all.
Yes. Well, thank you, Wendie, for having me on your podcast. I'm so glad to be here. And my story is really a story of another family. I met a woman when we moved to this new city, and she had a large family. She homeschooled her kids. She was really trying to protect them. But she found out that her 17-year-old son had been sexually molesting his younger brothers and sisters. So from the 14-year-old down to the 4-year-old. And the whole thing was horrific, as you can imagine. And it was fueled by pornography. I later talked to that young man, and he had to go away kind of to a program that we have here in Washington State, which is great. But he said it was interesting because everyone in his cohort, all the other young men in his cohort, none of them had a hands-on perpetrator. So they had perpetrated on their siblings or younger children, but it was porn that was the perpetrator. Porn is the one that is fueling kids to do this. So I woke up we talked late into the night, and I woke up the next morning, and I just had this thought kind of pulsating in my brain about how do you warn the young children when it's obvious they are seeing pornography, but no one is thinking to talk to them about it at such a young age. And so how would you do that? And I thought at first there'd be a couple books already out there, because I honestly have never had an original idea. But
it's a divine idea, right?
It was absolutely. Our platform and the books are really what I call faith neutral. We want this message to go to all parents, no matter their beliefs. All of God's children need this information. But it's just so critical that children learn about this. And I didn't find anything when I went to look. And so I just had this crazy idea to start writing a book. And I thought, well, someday I'll have grandchildren of my own. And if no one else wants it, it'll be for them. And so now I do have some grandkids, and it's great.
That's awesome. Well, yeah, it is all about defending young minds. And I love the name of the organization and your ministry, but Defend Young Minds. And it is about having a digital self-defense. And that's what you're calling it. Like how do we help them understand that we're supposed to hold every thought captive, but if we're getting thrown in our thoughts, things that don't belong, it's very confusing, and it actually starts to, change our body chemistry, and we become even addicted, right? You get that dopamine rush, you get stuck into that pleasure trap. And so I really wanted to bring you on today because, first of all, I've got your 2 books right here. And this one, Good Pictures, Bad Pictures, has sold over 100,000 copies, correct?
Actually, more than that. But
more than that at this point. So this is a great book, and it's illustrated incredibly well. And then your other right here, the Good Pictures, Bad Pictures Junior. And this is a #1 Amazon bestseller. These are so well done, Kristen. Like this is definitely
Thank
a divine, creative,
Wendie, you're so right
experience.
about that,
I'm
because like I
serious.
could not have done this by myself, and I had
Right.
a lot of help. That
Yeah.
is so true.
But it is. I mean, like I was reading it and I'm like, this is so good. I mean, you're really teaching about the feeling brain and the thinking brain, and how does a parent even discuss this with their child? And it just all makes sense. And so it helps the child be on alert and aware, but not afraid, right? But also to
Right.
understand how they're wired, how they're made, and how to push out the bad and keep the good. But I just want to talk a little bit about, you know, your goal is to help kids reject pornography. So let's talk about the tools that these particular books that you wrote are, and ways in which, practical steps that are in these books that someone listening could apply even right now if they suspect their children might be, dabbling or even have that temptation.
Right. Well, all children are biological humans. So most children will be curious. If you have a robot child, you can disregard all of this. But if you have a human child that's biologically human, you do need to be concerned. So in the books, what we do is we model a proactive mother, especially in the one for 7 to 11 that talks about the brain science. And she starts out by defining what pornography is. And we find out that so many children get told, don't look at pornography, and no one ever defines the term. So they may have been looking at it for years,
But didn't really
but
know that's
no
what
one
it was
ever
called.
told them what pornography actually was.
Interesting. Yeah.
I've heard this story many times, and I was just down in Texas at a homeschooling convention and heard it again several times again. So define your terms for these kids, tell them what it is, and it can be a very simple definition, just something enough so that they can recognize it. And so we got a definition, and then you need to warn them. They need to know this is harmful and that this can harm their brain. Not only just, it can be physically change their brain.
Mm-hmm.
And then third, they need a plan. So they know exactly what to do when they see it. So a definition, a warning, and a plan. And both of my books do that, just on different kind of levels. The first book is for 3 to 6. The younger book, and the one for older kids is for 7 to 11. Although you can use it as a guide to talk with teens. So every kid needs
be
that.
able to use it to talk to adults.
I've had
an epidemic that's there's no age on it, right?
There really isn't. And I've had several therapists come and tell me that they use it for their adult clients who are in addiction recovery, because it just lays out the addiction process so simply. Yeah. If you have an adult or anyone that's addicted, if you give them, most of them do not want to read a 350-page, volume of, psychology. So this just really, it's quick, and it gives them the basics. But every kid deserves to understand how their brain will be impacted by pornography, because it is so readily available out there.
Yeah. And the ripple effect that it causes. It's not just about them and their brain and their life, but the ripple effect of the lives around them. And we'll get to that. But
yes.
What is the, age that is best to start introducing this information? You mentioned that one of your books starts at age 3. I would think that some might think, well, whoa, that's way too young. But in this day and age, with things being thrown at us digitally, is 3 the age?
I honestly, it's any age that your child has. It's the age your child has any access to the internet, access to the internet. Mm-hmm. So if you hand your child your phone to play a game on, if they have an iPad that they can look through, even if you think it's locked down, it's so wise and really loving to begin early. If you knew all the stories, if you'd heard all the stories that I have, you would run, not walk, to get these conversations started. But I understand it is a little shocking. It is shocking to think. And when I first wrote good pictures, bad pictures, porn proofing today's young kids for kids ages 7 and up. I got, a lot of pushback on that. Like, what, a 7-year-old? But then I had parents themselves came up to me and asked me to write a book for younger children, for like preschoolers. And I'm like, what? I mean, it just kind of felt like a punch to the gut. But yes, unfortunately, preschoolers are getting exposed to this material and they need some guidance.
Yeah. And as a mom myself you just see how with this day and age, with the digital era, it could even happen just by accident, right? They can stumble across something by accident, no matter their age. And I know that, like, even on my social media, I have people that will request to be a friend or respond, and it's a pornography site. And I'm like, how on earth are you coming to me? I've never been on your site. I don't go near there. Why is this coming? So it's interesting to me, right? Like, it's just so pushed upon our kids. It's one of the largest industries, money-making industries, right? Beyond pharmaceutical.
It's
Predatory. Exactly.
Yeah.
Predatory. And in this day and age, with everything going on with identity crises and all kinds of things, it's just, I feel like we could probably talk about so much in this episode, right? Like, it's like a layer. It's like you peeling back the layer of the onion, and you see more and more, and you're like, oh my word. So if we could just go there for just a minute, let's talk a little bit about, maybe give a story or two. Let's kind of paint the picture for someone that might be listening and saying, oh no, I mean, my kid's innocent. I mean, that would never happen around here. Like, let's just paint the picture of reality of a few stories I've heard.
Yeah. Oh boy. Well, when I first started, I remember a videographer that I was working with told me that his friend was a young mom, and she was sitting next to her 3-year-old on the couch, and the mom was on her phone, the daughter was on her iPad, and all of a sudden her daughter screams, and the mother looks down, and there she is looking at bestiality, basically a woman having sex with a tiger.
Oh my goodness. Oh my goodness.
How troubling.
Oh my goodness.
But this little 3-year-old somehow got there. So then just a few weeks ago, I was at an early childhood ed and conference. They had asked me to come and speak and bring the books. And so one woman came into our class early, and she goes, I just wanted to make sure I got a seat. And she said, I was honestly shocked that you were going to be speaking here today. But then I had this experience, and now I know more than ever that it's so needed, even at these young ages. And so I'm like, well, what was your experience? And she said, someone close to her, a 3-year-old, they had found, I don't know, a phone. Maybe they were letting her use this phone. I don't know. Or an iPad. I'm not sure what it was, but she had a device. She had access to a device, and she was videotaping herself, taking videos of herself, unclothing, like naked. And so that was troubling. But then they found another video of her trying to have sex with the family pet. And that's when they knew, like, something terrible has happened to this girl. And so police were brought in, and they did this full, they were looking for the perpetrator.
Yeah.
Who has done this to this girl? They found no one. It was pornography. Right. She had just innocently, and kids are innocent. They're innocent victims. She had figured out the camera. She had figured out how to take videos. I'd be a little careful with that, moms.
Yeah.
Just saying.
Or a lot careful. Yeah.
Just a little careful. But the other thing is that, she had, obviously, that was their conclusion. And so kids imitate what they see adults do. And unfortunately, if they are exposed to pornography and they have no warning and they have no instruction, and the kid does not know what to do with this, we can't blame them for being impacted by it. getting involved with it. We need to step up. We need to warn them. We need to mentor them through this digital landscape, because there's so many wonderful things out there, right?
Right. Yeah. And yeah,
But there's
I
things to avoid.
remember even someone I know that on their school tablet, like a hacker came in and there was, some horrible pornography that was shocking, and she was young, and it was just like, wow, you think, oh, this is a school tablet, it's fine. And so I think it's just the parents being naive as well, right? Like, this is not anything to put our heads in the sand about any longer. It's time that we get educated, we rise up, we protect our children, because this is full out war. It is war, right? It's spiritual warfare.
That's why
in the digital space.
Yeah, that's why we renamed. We were Protect Young Minds, and protect is a great word.
Yeah.
But really, protect is, you can protect your car with wax, right? A car wax. But defend means there's a known enemy that you are protecting them from.
Right.
So you're defending them. And we know there are enemies out there, enemies to children's welfare, to their well-being. And so trying to get them addicted, trying to pull them in. So yes, Defend Young Minds is why we renamed, because we are in an all-out war. And but we can be victorious. I really do believe that we can mentor our children, that we can. I'll tell you another story. A 9-year-old boy, his mom read him good pictures, bad pictures. 3 days later, he went to school, and one of his classmates, out on the playground, pulled out his phone and said, "Hey, come here, I want to show you something." Wow. And it was porn. And he recognized it. He knew exactly that he shouldn't be looking at it. It was harmful to his brain. Yeah. And then he went home and he told his mom, and he said, "I was scared, but I knew what to do."
Yeah. Oh,
do you just feel it?
Yes.
I was scared, but I knew what to do. What a relief.
What a relief
these
is
kids
right.
have.
And we
they shouldn't have to face
to be scared. We don't want them to be in fear. We want them to rise up in victorious ways, just like that example. And also, pornography doesn't just look like, I guess a sexual movie of a live person. It can be even done in the form of cartoons. Isn't that correct? Right. So I want to let the parents know, or grandparents that are listening, that even in cartoons, and here's something I remember. This has nothing to do with pornography exactly, but it kind of does, because predators and are just everywhere, and they will try to sneak it in because it's just evil, right? Wherever. So I remember when my son was little, we were watching just an innocent little YouTube video, and it was about dogs, and they're out frolicking and whatever, running around, and then all of a sudden there was a horrible situation of what someone had done to a dog and hurt this dog, right? Like, this was not pornography, but what I'm saying is they slipped it into this video that was supposed to be so beautiful. So, would your message be to the parent or grandparent that, always watch the full show or the full whatever, either with your child or watch it prior to them watching it, because you just never know what may pop up? And have you ever
Well, I guess if we lived in an ideal world, we could do that.
Yeah, right.
Okay. And the Kristen, more that we can do that, I think, would be ideal. I think you do have to have trusted sources for content. We have some articles on Defend Young Minds about this. There are some trusted sources that are curated. So the problem with YouTube is that anybody can upload, right? Yeah. And YouTube really just doesn't do a perfect job of keeping out the bad stuff. So I think what I would do is look for I'd skip YouTube altogether. I like YouTube. I watch it for lots of things, but for a kid, I would skip it altogether, and I would find curated content, people that you trust that have curated the content, rather than going on or having your child go on YouTube. Even YouTube Kids have some issues for sure. So that would be my recommendation.
Yeah, that's very good. Being intentional and being responsible. And, I think how long ago it was. And I mean, I thought it was just, I'm here with my kid and so I thought it was safe. And so, yeah, you really want to filter and know where you're getting that information. So let's talk a little bit about the repercussions of pornography if someone were to go down that road, and if they don't understand good pictures, bad pictures, and they continue to take in the bad pictures for multiple years in their life. How does this unfold?
Yeah, so there are many harms to children. And in that book, we talk about something that I felt was much more concrete and age appropriate, which we're going to talk about your brain. And we're going to talk about your thinking brain and your feeling brain and how they work together, and how pornography can hijack your brain and become an actual addiction that is just as real, just as powerful as any substance addiction, right? But kids have access to porn. We don't let them buy tobacco. We don't let them vape. We don't let them,
drug,
right. We don't let them go and buy alcohol, but we unfortunately allow them access. I say we, but as a world, access to pornography. So it's the one thing that they can get addicted to more. And listen, if you had a meth problem and you could get meth for free out of your phone any time of the day or night anonymously, would you have a meth problem?
Of course, yes.
Yes, you would.
Yeah.
So that's the problem with pornography. It's such a powerful drug, really, for the brain. So that's one harm. But honestly, there's so many others. Another harm is that we were talking about before is that children imitate. And so there's this huge troubling trend. We talk with sexual assault nurse examiners. We talk with therapists. They're just inundated with this. In fact, we just ran an article on sibling sexual trauma. And it became the third most visited page on our website.
Really?
Like practically overnight. Huh. Well, what does that tell you? Yeah. There's a problem out there, but nobody wants to talk about it. And we talk about it on Defend Young Minds because it is fueled by children's access to pornography. Normal kids that don't get any access to this don't go and sexually abuse another child. Right? They have that. It's just not natural part of their growth.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Right.
So that's another one. And then thirdly, I would just say it teaches them really poisonous, toxic scripts about sex and about themselves. It causes them, and I think social media is also involved in this, but to objectify yourself. What does that bring on? Depression, anxiety, all of these, suicide, honestly. So
the vicious cycle is what I'm saying.
It is. Yeah. It is. So there's a lot of harms that come from porn, not just addiction, but addiction can really be a lifelong struggle.
Yeah. And we talked about this before I hit record, but I want to bring this up because, it's men and women, boys and girls that can become addicted. It's not just one or the other. Right. But you had mentioned before I hit record that, men deal with, erectile dysfunction because of pornography, right? So let's talk a little bit about that, and then even what females may experience with consumption and being hypersexual.
Yeah. So basically, anybody can get so topped out on porn that they can only be aroused by porn. They can't be aroused by like a real person, even if they were attracted to that person, they love that person, but they cannot get aroused. So men, historically, like 3% of men between the ages of like 25 and 44, something like that, had erectile dysfunction because it was a vascular problem, right? you've got a vascular problem, maybe you've got bad heart disease, whatever. But now it's a third, and it is just a shocking increase. And I'm sure some of that might be too many burgers and fries, but I think there is this real phenomenon of porn-induced erectile dysfunction. And I wish every 14-year-old boy especially would know about this. There are groups out there that are trying to help men to heal from this, because it can be incredibly destructive and disturbing to them, because here they are wanting to have sex with their wife, but they can't, but they can get aroused to porn. That is very destructive to a marriage. But they find that when they stop masturbating to pornography, it may take months. For some, it may take, a long time, but they will go through withdrawal. They'll go through all the kinds of addiction, withdrawal symptoms, but then they'll heal. And most of them do heal if they can stay away from it. And so it's a real thing. And it affects you physically.
Yeah, it affects you physically. It can ruin a marriage. It can ruin friendships. It can ruin all kinds of things, and it can ruin your job. I mean, all kinds of things come out of that addiction. And so, and with women, I mean, it just takes away your self-worth. And with everyone, their identity, they're not who they are in Christ. Let's just get real, right?
Yeah.
Like they're not knowing who they are, and that's the bigger issue too, right?
Yeah, I just read a book. Gosh, do I have it here? I think it's called Dopamine Nation.
Oh, I've heard of that.
And
actually. Yes.
Oh, it's really good. And the author, who I can't remember right now, I'm so sorry.
Okay.
She starts out talking about a man who was addicted to sex and masturbation, but she reveals her own addiction to basically erotic literature. I hate to say a literature, to be honest, but
right.
a kind of genre,
romance
how she just got so, it was taking her away from her family, her children, her marriage.
It was in fantasy
and
world.
She just, got caught up in it. And she's a psychologist, PhD, right? She had to figure out how to pull herself away from that. And, it's interesting because I just read the chapter on honesty, and how honesty not only helps addicts recover from addictions, but she really feels like the evidence shows that it helps kids also as a preventative. Like, if you are extremely honest and you will tell your parents and be honest about it, honesty can really be protective.
Yeah. Well, dark does not like the light shined on it, right? Like, so yeah, you become honest and open. And even if you're an adult listening to this right now and you're having an issue with pornography, don't let the shame and the condemnation keep you from just being honest, so you can get help and live in the freedom that you're called to live in Christ. So, Kristen, I just love what you're doing. I thank you for your time. I feel like I could talk to you for another half hour or more. But Defend Young Minds is on a mission. And so I thank you for just having the courage to write about tough topics and to really educate the adults, so that we can educate our children, the children in our life, so that they don't become victims of just something that happened innocently, right? That we did not innocently, but we thought, we would have never imagined. We didn't know that would happen. And then sure enough, because we weren't aware. So now everyone can be aware. Go to defendyoungminds.com and get your books, read them to your children, read them to the children in your life, so that they don't end up just accidentally stumbling across something. What is I guess, what is the biggest pitfall that maybe parents kind of find themselves in when it comes to the topic of pornography or even addressing it? I know this is a tool. This is great, but is there like kind of a pitfall that maybe this doesn't even answer, like even being able to talk about it or read it? Do they have a stumbling block of even trying to go there? Because I live in Minnesota. There's lots of Scandinavians here. They don't talk a lot about their feelings. Everything's kind of closed off, right? So let's talk about that for a minute.
Yeah, I'm Scandinavian too, but I've kind of gotten over it.
Good girl. Good girl.
I would say that anything that we don't know how to deal with, we put off till tomorrow, right? Mm-hmm. Because we've got enough to deal with today. And so there's that procrastination. And I can't tell you how many people have come up to me and said, I wish my parents had had your book. Or parents say, I wish I'd had your book 5 years ago, or 2 years ago, or whatever. So but these tools make it super easy. If you go to Amazon and you look at the reviews, one of the things that is most often said is it's so comfortable. It's just a comfortable way. We make it into kind of like a science, lesson in a sense, right? And
knowledge is power, right?
Right. And so, yes, no child deserves to face the porn industry alone. Everyone deserves to understand how their brain can be negatively impacted, harmed by pornography. I would say that parents sometimes worry that if they introduce this topic to their child might be curious and immediately go, and then it's your fault as a mom.
I'm glad you brought that up, because that's one of the things that came across my mind. So I'm glad you mentioned that.
Yeah. Oh, it's because we as moms will feel guilty about anything and everything. It's all our fault.
Mommy guilt. Yep.
Oh my goodness. But this is the thing. We've been trying the other way, which is to cross your fingers and don't say a word for decades. And we've just got generations of people who are addicted, marriages that are completely destroyed. So divorce pretty hard on kids. I know myself as a child. So I think that the other way, where you're proactive and intentional and say, look, I've warned you about don't run out to the street. You might get hit by a car. I warned you about that. I've warned you about this. I warned you about body safety issues.
It's a parental duty.
Right.
Really.
Now I'm going to warn you about digital dangers and what you can do to keep yourself safe.
Yeah.
And happy and thriving.
And to have a healthy relationship with sex, right?
Yes.
With your spouse one day, right? Like to enjoy what God really gave us to be beautiful.
Wendie, I'll say to parents, you may not have ever thought to say this out loud, but you really want your kids to have a great sex life.
Mm-hmm. Oh yeah.
And porn is going to ruin it.
Yeah.
It really will. So to set your kids up to have a great sex life sometime, the right time with the right person, then, porn should not be part of the formula, because it will take kids in the opposite direction. If we want them to have a wonderful, intimate relationship, strong, intimate relationship with their spouse, porn will take them into addiction, isolation, and really also lower their empathy. So I think that there's so many good reasons, and the books just help you start those conversations, continue those conversations, and help set you up as the, digital mentor for your child. And they need our help. They really do. It's too much. It is too much for them. We think because they're so agile with technology that they can handle it. They can't handle it. Even though they know more about it than we do, they cannot handle it. And so I just beg parents to think this is the most loving thing you can do.
Amen.
Is to give your kids a defense against this predator and that will, really rob them of their sexual scripts that will be healthy and rob them of their peace of mind. So we want kids to grow up healthy and strong, and they can if they have a real choice.
Right.
If they have a real choice. But if we don't warn them and they don't know what hit them, how much of a choice do they really have before their immature thinking brain is just, whoop,
Right. Yeah.
They're pulled into this.
Yeah. Oh, I just love this, Kristen. Yeah. So those of you listening, you can hear that we implore you to take matters into your own hands here, so that your kids and the kids in your life don't suffer. Because also, I think selfishly, I'm putting words in Kristen's mouth here, but we want a healthy world around us. We want healthy people around us, so that we can all function as the body that we're intended to function in.
And
so,
I know moms that will give copies of the books out or lend their copy out to their friends, their friends' parents. Like, have you heard of this book? We really, ascribed to, because she wanted all the kids that, especially when they were little, the cousins and all that, she wanted all of them to have had this information, so they all knew to reject pornography and, why they should and what to do when they see it. So she was I've seen that happen in communities where you want your friends, the kids' friends who are very influential on them, to also be protected. So we have a wonderful guide called How to Talk to Kids About Pornography on our website. It's free to download, and it just gets you started. Yeah, defendyoungminds.com. And if you go to the guides page, or it's right on the front homepage, you'll see this guide, How to Talk to Kids About Pornography. And you can download it. And it really helps you do three things. And that is get the facts, arm the kids, continue the conversations. So that's an iterative process, right? It's not like you do exercise. I exercise too, but you can't just do it once and say, I'm done.
It's the discipline of the daily, daily grind. Yes.
Yes. So these conversations have to continue on. So download that. It's free, and we have other free guides. I'll just say one more thing, that kids who know how to reject pornography also know how to reject the absolute number one best grooming tool out there, grooming for sexual abuse, and that is pornography. And I have so many stories of children who are taught to reject pornography. They're caught in a situation with a groomer, a predator who shows them pornography on a smartphone, starting that process, and they recognize it, and they turn and get themselves out of there and go tell their mom or dad, and they're saved because they know to reject pornography.
This is so good. Saving lives, saving souls, and saving the lineage of a healthy legacy of family. And so that's what you're doing, Kristen. So thank you so very much. Here is the two books right here if you're watching on YouTube, and make sure you go to get yours over at defendyoungminds.com. But I thank you for your courage, because this is a major topic in a world that is so seems to be desensitized in this space, and we need to open our eyes, open our ears, and start defending our children, and open our mouth to share the truth with them. So thank you. God bless you. And I look forward to seeing you in person soon at NRB conference. Yes.
I'm excited. Yes. Thank you, Wendie.
Right. Thank you. God bless. Thanks for being on Visibly Fit. Take care. Well, I sure hope you enjoyed this episode of Visibly Fit. I know it's a little bit different than my normal episodes, but you know what? This is a war that we need to be courageous in, and be bold in, and know our stuff, so we can fight well to save our children, right? And the minds of our children, and the souls of our children. So go ahead and again, go to defendyoungminds.com to learn more, or to grab your copy of Good Pictures, Bad Pictures, and read that to your children. And maybe someone even in your space that's an adult needs to read it, because this is an epidemic. So I hope this show blessed you, maybe even opened your eyes a little bit to what's really going on and how we can stand up and fight right. All right. Well, if you are looking for a safe place to come on board to fight right regarding your health and your well-being, mind, body, spirit, emotions, yes, all of that, then Visibly Fit is just that space. It is a safe space for us to get to the bottom of what might be going on in your health and your lifestyle, and tweak it and change it and make things better for you so that you are living a life of abundance and great health and great energy. So if you are interested, if you're looking for a place to come to release weight and get off medication, then Visibly Fit is for you. Go to wendiepett.com to learn more, or email me at wendy@wendiepett.com, and we will schedule time to have a conversation. So God bless you. Thank you so much again for tuning into this episode of Visibly Fit, and we will catch you next week. Take care. Well, that's a wrap for today's show. So thank you so much for tuning in. I love spending this time with you. To learn more and get more free resources, just head on over to wendiepett.com. And thank you in advance for sharing this episode and this podcast, following and subscribing not only to this podcast, but finding me on social media, Instagram, YouTube, Facebook, wherever you are, I'm probably there too. Until next week and our next podcast time together, make it a Visibly Fit day.